Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Amy and today we are going into some of the juiciest and most toxic r/am I the a-hole posts on Reddit, so let's get on to it. First up, it already sounds crazy. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister's boyfriend that she had an abortion at 15? First off, you don't really think it's the best thing for sharing things that isn't your news, but let's get into it. So I, 22 female, got pregnant with twins when I was only 14. I found out when I was already in the second trimester. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my kids, but I wish I had them when I was stable enough to do so. I think that is a fair comment. Of course, 14 is very young. Obviously, it's not legal in a lot of places necessarily. So I think that's a fair statement to be saying. Of course, you love your kids, but situation probably could have been better. My sister, 24, had an abortion when she was only 15. She was a terrible teenager. Her and her friends would bully me for getting pregnant at 14. When my parents found out about the bullying, my sister wasn't allowed to have any friends in the house for a long time. It sounds like calling pot kettle black. You know, it is very harsh criticism. There's not a lot of time between that. 14 to 15, the gap could have been a couple months. It's not necessarily a whole year between them. I don't think you can judge one for some of the behaviour you're doing yourself. I'm not necessarily saying you should be mean towards each other. And again, your sister bullying for you doing something that she has done. Suspicious behaviour. Now, my sister is a Christian and she has been judging me for not waiting until marriage and having kids as a kid. She would do this in front of new people as well. Last weekend, we had a family gathering and my sister brought her boyfriend, who's also Christian, with her for the first time. We were sitting at the table when she brings up the fact that I had my kids at 14 and that is a sin that I didn't wait until marriage. Her boyfriend then looks at me with disgust. Then that's when I snapped at her and told her, since you want to bring up sins, how about we talk about the fact that you had an abortion at 15? This is just not right on so many different levels. First of all, the fact that the sisters just completely blocked out what's happened for her and has been so aggressive towards her sister in having kids young, it hurts my head. That's crazy. And the fact that she's pushing that judgment onto people she knows as well as going to judge. I don't agree with judging. And, you know, when religion comes into it, I don't disrespect anyone else's beliefs and I hope they can do the same with me. Not everyone wants to follow religion or the same beliefs or whatever. I don't agree with fighting fire with fire. And by sharing that information you have, it isn't your information to share. I don't think the approach was right. However, I do understand it. It carries on. She started crying and I just went home. My mother later called me and said that she understood my feelings, but that I should have ignored my sister instead of airing out my sister's business like that, and that I need to apologise to my sister. I told her that if my sister minded her own business, I would have minded mine, and I hung up the phone. My extended family says that it was an asshole-ish move, especially since my sister regrets her abortion, and I knew that. So, am I the a-hole? I would say both sides have been asshole-ish. I think the sister has acted in an awful manner. I also think if you're going to pass that judgment on, you then shouldn't be immune to receiving backlash back. She knew what she was saying and she knew both of the situations. I think she's taken your goodwill of that you're not going to react and that you have reacted. It's now not gone her way. Does that mean you should have necessarily approached it that way? I don't think so. I wouldn't say you are a complete asshole. However, I do think there could have been a different approach to it. But the sister, I think, definitely has to do a bit of looking inwards. We can regret things in life and we can change our paths, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you then can't judge people for having the same and putting yourself on a higher pedestal because of it. It's just not the best approach. And of course, this is now saying that she's been lying to her boyfriend because he didn't know. And I can imagine that is a big can of worms that's been opened. So not the best. So the next one. Am I the asshole? My mother refuses to acknowledge my spinal cord injury isn't fixable and I finally snapped at her. I'll be honest, you're not the arsehole. I'm going to start off, I don't think you're the arsehole, and we'll go into it. But if someone can't acknowledge a disability and won't be listening to you, I think it's fair to run out of patience and snap. So let's get into it. Basically what the title says: I, 17, female, broke my back just over 2 years ago. My spinal cord suffered severe damage and it has left me physically disabled. I can stand up on my own and walk short distances, but doing so often puts me in excruciating pain. Over the last 2 years, I have had 3 surgeries to try to repair the damage, and while they have lessened pain in some areas, the full injury cannot be repaired. That is awful to hear, and that in itself is a lot to overcome emotionally. I've had a lot of disabilities, illnesses, and knowing it won't get better, or they can only fix it partially, or just do things to kind of help make quality of life a tiny bit better instead of curing it, is a lot of baggage and emotionally takes its toll on you. So I can't imagine how she's feeling here. My mother, 55, female, refuses to accept this, and over the last 2 years has pushed me into more and more treatments even if I didn't want them, claiming every time that this would be the one that cured me. Both I and my father have tried to tell her that the nerve damage is permanent and that the best course of action is to simply try preserve my back so I retain mobility as I get older, which is what 3 separate doctors have advised. My mother won't listen to us. She's become obsessed with trying to fix me and get me back to my old self. She keeps signing me up for treatments and programs without asking or after I've already said no. These treatments are usually exercise based or based on holistic treatment / natural remedies, or even still experimental procedures, and most of them have only left me sore if not injured. She also refuses to let me have any accommodations. I can't use a cane, wheelchair or anything else around her, and often refuses to let me sit or lay down when I'm in pain. This mother sounds in denial and is a arsehole. You're not the arsehole, and we'll continue the rest of the thread. But if your doctors have been advising you to do things or not to do things, your doctors are the most reliable source of information. The fact that the mum is forcing her into doing treatments she doesn't want and that's leaving her in pain, you can be arguing that she's actually causing more damage. If you're having to use wheelchairs and canes and things to preserve mobility, all of these treatments the mum is suggesting is likely causing more damage and in the long run probably making things a lot worse. And I mean, I'm not involved and I don't want to be throwing accusations around, but on a surface level that sounds abusive. Would be something I would be speaking to doctors about, because if you need to be using mobility aids, you shouldn't be stopped from using those mobility aids because they are needed for a reason. Over the last 1.5 years, my condition has been deteriorating, but my mother acts like she hasn't noticed, just keeps booking my usual doctor's appointments. And I mean, if she's getting forced into doing treatments that are detrimental, of course she's going to be deteriorating. Now it's gotten to the point where she insists on being in the doctor's office with me because she believes I won't give reliable information about my symptoms of if I go in alone. Tonight I just couldn't take it anymore and I broke down crying, telling her to stop trying to fix me and just help. I begged her to just stop pushing me, to try to accept that I'm not able-bodied anymore, but she wasn't having it. This is so difficult. I think in society a lot of people have this belief that things can just get better, and there's obviously chronic illness and disabilities and some things just won't get better, and I think a lot of people, or at least some people, have a lot harder time understanding that than others. It sounds like the mum is in complete denial, and I understand not wanting to see your child ill or in pain, but you can't just stop that. You can't reverse it just by ignoring it or saying it's lies. The fact that the mum is also saying it's lies and is now not letting you go in alone is very concerning. I don't know the ins and the outs, but obviously there's the whole thing of like Munchausen by proxy, where parents believe your child is ill, or is kind of believing, enforcing that your child is ill when they're not. This almost sounds like the opposite. She's forcing that you're well and you're not. This just sounds really dangerous. You can't be fixed, and knowing that people want to just fix you does instill a very heavy emotional burden, that may be that you're not wanted or you're not good enough, or people want you back the way you were and that as you are now isn't enough. And that's so hard and heavy, and you shouldn't be feeling that way. And I can imagine the spinal cord injury is isolating enough without having the people who should be supporting you doing detrimental things towards your health and just not supporting. This is crazy. She told me that if Paralympic athletes could do it, so could I. That I had to stop making excuses and that she only wanted what is best for me. I understand that denial is part of the grieving process, but I've already accepted it and I just don't know what to do anymore. I've tried to be understanding, but she's really driving me to the end of my rope. So am I the asshole for snapping at her? No, you're not the asshole. I think that comment is extremely insensitive about the Paralympic athletes. You know, again, disabilities and even the qualifications for what makes you a Paralympic athlete. Disability isn't a one-size-fits-all, and things that affect people or that makes them disabled doesn't affect them, or it doesn't affect everyone the same way. So you're saying with your spinal cord injury you need to limit movement. Why would you then necessarily go into the Olympics and be a Paralympian? It's not making excuses, it's protecting yourself. I mean, I know for myself with my health, I need to look out the best I can, not just for now, but for the future, so I don't make myself worse. And this is exactly what she's doing. If she messes herself up now, or she makes her health worse, long term, she could be causing herself a lot of damage. That's not being lazy, and that's not making excuses. That's being very practical and I'd say very grown up, because you might have to put things off that you want to do or sacrifice things in life because you need to ultimately look out for your health. And this is very toxic and very dangerous, and I hope that you can find support around you or some help regarding this, because this, again, I understand a parent's probably very upset about this and you care for your children, but this is beyond caring. And even if, yes, she's grieving for you, this is your issue ultimately, and they should be there to support you, not to make it worse, especially not just on a mental point of view, but if she's physically having a detriment to your health, I mean, alarm bells are there. So no, I don't think you're the arsehole. I don't think many people would think you're the arsehole, and I really hope that the mum can look inwards, because this is just dangerous. So if we go on to the next one. Stuck in the bathtub at 40 weeks pregnant, significant other mad at me. Am I the arsehole? Again, this thread is always mind-boggling, because you read them and half the time you're like, well, obviously you're not the arsehole. I mean, why would you think of the arsehole? But we're going to go into it. So, I, 27 female, 40 weeks pregnant, and all belly, very tiny frame. Around midnight, made the poor choice of taking a bath. I was still in a lot of pain from contractions/cramping that had gone on for 2 days straight, and thought a bath would help. I'll be honest, I think a bath is great for pain and anything, and I don't necessarily think it's a poor choice. If that would help you, then you should be doing it. When it was time to get out, I couldn't get myself up. I tried different positions and ended up falling from my knees to my butt. I couldn't get the weight off myself up. I messaged my partner, 29, male, for help, but he was sleeping. I kept trying to get up and couldn't, and all the water had drained out the tub. I tried calling his name, I banged on the wall, I used my phone and called him several times, and he wouldn't wake up. I started to have a panic attack because I was stuck and didn't know how I was going to get out, or if I just end up having to sleep in there until someone found me. I can imagine this was terrifying, and the fact that, one, you fell, that's concerning, it's dangerous. You couldn't get out of the bath. What if anything could happen? I mean, if you can't get up and then you go into labour or something, you know, something bad happens, it's dangerous. I'm not saying that's not her fault. If she can't get out, she can't get out, but this is concerning. I tried to getting up again and couldn't. I kept slipping before I could even get on my knees. I kept calling my partner on my phone until he eventually woke up. I told him I was stuck in the bathtub and I couldn't get out and that I was having a panic attack. I was crying. I'd been stuck in there for almost 40 minutes at that point. He came in and I said, I'm stuck in here and I really need help. I tried to wake, ... He cut me off and raised his voice at me and said, I don't know why you don't effing ask for help. I was right in the next room. First of all, just treating that with aggression straight away is a red flag. She had been asking for help. Just why is he even questioning that? Surely it should just be, oh my God, are you okay? Let me help you. The fact that he's gone straight to aggression is concerning. I said, I did. I messaged you and called and banged on the wall and you were sleeping. I did try to ask for help. He helped me up. Mind you, I'm so heavy. Even he had a hard time getting me up and I was still crying at this point. He said, you're so effing dramatic. Went into the bedroom and went back to sleep. I grabbed my things, took my medication, which is for an anxiety disorder, and went down to sleep on the couch. I was overall calm other than crying. I did try to get help, and being stuck in a tiny tub while heavily pregnant for 40 minutes after already taking an hour bath was becoming very uncomfortable. Am I the asshole in this situation? I genuinely did not know what else to do. You're not the asshole, the partner's the asshole. I'm not being funny. Being stuck in that bath could have been very dangerous. You don't know what could have happened. You could have went into labour. You're very heavily pregnant, as you said. You kept falling. He needed to help you. And again, if you were in a lot of pain and a bath was the only thing that was helping, I don't blame you for going for a bath, and you shouldn't be blaming yourself on that one. You're not being dramatic. Again, this is a very serious situation, and the fact that he's thought so lightly of it, this is not your fault. I'm just trying to process it. I think this is just red flags all over, and realistically, if he's like this during pregnancy, I really hope this was a one-off, but obviously you don't want behaviours like this to continue. Ultimately, if you needed to get out of bath and you couldn't, worst case, I'd have start ringing emergency numbers or, relatives who someone who could have helped you if your partner thinks he is not capable of doing so, because how he acted was very childish and ultimately not supportive. I don't understand how you'd be the asshole in this situation. You've tried your best to try and help yourself and you needed a bit of help. That's okay. Your partner should be helping you. You're heavily pregnant. I think you did the right thing. If anything, I'd have just rang someone else to come and help me. The fact that you sat in the bath for that long just trying to get him to help you, he's an arsehole. And I really hope this was a one-off and that you can talk about this and get through this, because this is just unacceptable behaviour. And finally, we've got one last one. Am I the a-hole for showing no sympathy for my brother and my soon-to-be ex-wife after the loss of their baby and refusing to let my parents talk about it? This one is long-winded and it's juicy, and let's get into it. I'm getting divorced from my wife. I'll call her my wife in the post for clarity, of a decade. We have 3 kids together, 2 school-aged and 1 preschool-aged child. The last 2 years of our marriage were rough and I had no idea why. She pretended things were all good when talking to me, but complained about me to her family and friends non-stop. When I told her she could talk to me, she was saying her family and friends were just trying to stir some shit, and that she wouldn't say I was lazy and ignored her, which was a lot of what I was told. She said we'd get back to normal once all 3 kids were in school and we had more time for us. If you have problems in a relationship, I'll be honest, the best way forward is communication. When there's no communication, there is problems, and this doesn't sound great to begin with. Then I found out she was having an affair with my brother. Finding out your partner of 10 years is having an affair regardless would be absolutely heartbreaking, but the fact it's with your brother, I found out via his ex-girlfriend who sent a photo of them kissing outside my brother's place. He broke up with her before the affair was revealed, but he said a lot of shit about her and how she was paranoid and didn't trust him, and she was proven to be right. So the brother was gaslighting his girlfriend, so they were both in relationships. The fact that you found out through a photo, I mean, at least the ex-girlfriend of your brother told you. I'm glad that she let you know, but that is awful. That is awful. When my wife said she was pregnant, I knew the baby was my brother's and said there was zero way for me to be the father. She tried to tell everyone she didn't know, but the 3 of us knew. She knew we hadn't had sex in years. She was using the baby to try and make me more agreeable. But I told her our marriage was over and I filed for divorce. I mean, you shouldn't be using the baby as bargaining chip, and especially when it's a baby. It's not even your baby now. She moved in with my brother and tried to take the kids, but I stopped her because she lives 2.5 hours away and our school-aged kids were not going to be able to make a 3-hour each-way drive to school. Temporary custody was granted to me, with visitation being granted to her. I'll be honest, it's not your and your kids' fault that your whole family's been turned upside down, and the kids will obviously know that's their uncle, that's your brother. So their uncle is now with mum. That is very worrying for the kids to know about. I don't blame you for wanting to have the children, Why should their lives be unsettled with moving school, obviously then disrupting their friends and their learning, moving into a household where the mum was the one that broke the family, and then it's with their uncle and trying to get their head around it? No. My parents were shocked and angry at my brother when I told them. He tried giving me shit for making them go after him and her when she was pregnant. I muted him because I didn't want to hear the BS, but I also wanted to make sure everything in the divorce and custody went smoothly, and I hope to maintain primary custody, so I'll need to show they're better off with me. Again, he's looking out for their kids. I don't see any problem with that. And I'll be honest, I think the parents, it's their choice what they do. I don't blame them for going after the brother. I think that's fair. My parents ended up accepting them as a couple. I said I could understand them not giving up a child and grandchild, but I don't want to hear about them. They said they respected this. And I think that's fine. I don't necessarily know how accepting I would feel as the parents, but if that's the situation and they're both making a mutually agreed deal, then that's fair. A few weeks ago, my wife had a stillborn baby. She and my husband blamed me for all the stress I put her under. She said being apart from our kids as much as she is was the biggest cause of her miscarriage, and she sent a lot of vile texts and I replied to none of them. She also sent a number of them which I documented with hers. That's so toxic, and it's not your fault. I mean, she's cheated. She's then had a child with that person. You're protecting the children, which it doesn't sound like she thought about the children in this. And then she's blaming us on you. I don't think that is just red flags. I'm sorry, that's not your issue. My parents came over to tell me about what happened and were shocked that I knew. They asked what I had said to my brother and wife. I told them nothing. I said I wasn't going to offer any sympathy to either of them after they did the dirty on me and fucked up mine and my kids' lives. My parents tried to talk about the loss and the baby and everything surrounded it, but I shut it down and told them I was not going to be their shoulder to cry on or listening ear. I said my wish was not to hear anything about my brother or wife had not changed because they lost a baby. They left my house angry and it took a couple of weeks for them to reach out again. They asked if I would be so rude to them again, and I said if they tried to talk about this, then yes. They asked if I'd reached out to my brother and wife, and I said no. They told me they had hoped to see me at the service, and I told them it wouldn't happen. They said I didn't need to become such a cold-hearted monster, and times like these is where you put away the hate. I don't agree, but I'm willing to entertain that maybe I'm wrong. Am I the a-hole? No. I don't think... It's very sad to have the stillborn, and, you know, emotionally I can imagine that was a lot for your ex-wife to go through. But you agreed with your parents, you didn't want to hear anything about them, and they should be realistically honouring your decision. Are they not thinking about all the heartbreak that you went through, losing a marriage of 10 years, of dealing with your children and how your children are feeling with the marriage breakdown? Obviously, the pressure from everyone else. I'm in no doubt saying that your ex-wife isn't struggling, but I also don't think that you just need to almost roll over and just be there because something bad's happened to them. You're looking out for your children, and as you said, you don't want that contact there, and I don't blame you. And the parents trying to guilt trip you isn't fair. You didn't ask for any of this to happen. You're not obliged to do anything towards them because, you know, she's made her decision and ultimately that wasn't you. So you need to make your decision on what you need to do. I think if your parents can't respect your decision, I wouldn't blame you for not talking to them, because you should be having respect on both sides. And again, they should be respecting your decision. Also, you have got your kids, you'd hope that they can respect any decisions there. If they can't respect boundaries, then, you know, it causes a lot of concern for a lot of different things. The fact that she was also sending you vile messages, it just sounds like she can't take accountability. She's just helping herself in the lawsuit against her, so she can't have the children. So yeah, what a messy story. I hope that you're okay and your children are okay. I would not say you're the asshole at all. I don't blame you for not wanting to be involved, because ultimately she chose her path and she has to live with it. It's not your fault that the baby was stillborn. Yes, it's sad, but that's nothing to do with you. That's not your family anymore. What an interesting bunch of stories. As usual, the thread shows that most of the time people are not the a-holes and that there are some very messed up families and dynamics about. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Let me know if you want me to do more Reddit videos. There's a lot more threads that I do want to do deep dives into, so let me know more about them down below if there's any that you'd like to see, and please subscribe if you want to see more from me. I'm going to be posting a lot more, so thank you guys for watching and I will see you in the next one.